winning recipes to bring to holiday celebrations. I can't believe that Thanksgiving is already underway, but we've already got past that, and now we're into the other holidays of like Christmas and New Year's coming up. So we're going to be talking about just some recipes that you can bring to holiday celebrations, whether it's your social network or just friends and family, and you want to just kind of create something where everybody can just have something delicious. So we're going to be talking about some of those ideas here. So the objectives that you're going to see a little cooking demonstration towards the end of this session, and we're going to talk about why certain recipes are crowd pleasing dishes for the holidays and how to prepare some of these recipes. So when we say crowd recipes, crowd pleasing is just for a bigger crowd where people can kind of just dive in and enjoy this type of food. So it's kind of almost like comfort food, I would say. And we'll get into all of that. All right, so here is one here. So let's talk about why we would want to make something that is crowd pleasing. So you want things that are like in large volume, right? Things that can feed a crowd and it's not too much effort, right? And so something like chili would be something like you would do, in a big pot or something that you can just bring everybody can have a bowl of this. But believe it or not, it's not a fancy dish, but it can be crowd pleasing where you could prepare these like in your couple of slow cookers, and you can have that where it's done very effortlessly, right? I think a way of making a chili more exciting is by the toppings on it, right? So you could do different toppings on that, whether it's like some fresh cilantro or some other type of toppings that you want, like your typical like cheddar cheese, all that kind of good stuff. But just kind of getting creative with the toppings on chili could be something that could win a crowd over, right? So um, some chilies are made without beans. You can make it where it's just like kind of meat heavy, but this is like a typical black bean and corn chili. You could do that. You could do it with different varieties of beans. So there's a lot of different ways you could, make a chili a little bit more exciting for folks. You can do it hot, you can do it mild, you can do it, when I say hot, I mean spicy. But you could do a lot of different things when it comes to chili recipes. So this is your typical one made with, like a tomato-based one, but you can do a white bean chili where that's not the issue. So a lot of different things that you could do with chili, even though it seems like, that's pretty obvious, like that would be for a crowd, but you can kind of like put different spins on different chilies. So that is a good crowd winning recipe. And then kind of going back with that, with the chili thing here, is you could kind of do like a taco bowl, right? So here it is, a bowl of kind of like the ground beef in here. And then you have your layers of like your lettuce under here, your tomato, corn, and then your beef mixture, a little bit of sour cream and tortilla chips on top. And then people can just kind of, help themselves with that too. So this is kind of like a nice type of comfort food recipe to bring to a crowd that can enjoy this. So simply by making this, you just have to have something that's big enough, right, to hold all of these type of to hold the bowl to make this taco bowl with all these great ingredients in here. And here, this doesn't have like beans in it, but you could obviously put beans in there too if you wanted to. But make it your own. I don't see like maybe like a little layer of jalapeno pepper probably be really nice in there. Just different things to kind of jazz it up from the traditional. But the taco bowls are great, and the chili. So these are just your standard recipes that you could use for a crowd, and kind of do it without too much fuss. You don't have to get fancy with stuff. We're busy when it's coming during the holidays, so these are just great comfort food recipes. Chicken wings. How can we not? Everybody, I think most people like chicken wings, right? So when it comes to chicken wings, right, whether you bake it, grill it, fry it, whatever, there's a variety of sauces that can appeal to different taste preferences, right? So our typical chicken wings can be like, the traditional barbecue sauce. You could go Asian style. You could do a teriyaki sauce. You could do all types of sauces. You could do like a Carolina mustard sauce if you're not crazy about tomato-based things. So chicken wings, you could easily be make these with on a sheet pan, and you could do quite a bit just baking them. I think baking is probably going to be your best bet as far as when it comes to um, kind of making it time efficient where you're not kind of like babysitting it if you were frying it, right? And you can easily do that with like a couple of sheet pans in your, you can probably get at least 3 sheet pans in your oven, and you can easily make, some baked chicken wings, right? So I think the benefit of that also is, like I said, you could just do the different sauces to coat the chicken, but then also the dipping sauce. So typically, like a buffalo chicken wing, you'll see like your blue cheese dip, right? But you can all get into different types of dips, which would be interesting, right? So just kind of thinking outside the box. It's always about like maybe the sauces or something that's a little different from the ordinary that can go with chicken wings. So, like I mentioned before, I was saying you could do the Carolina barbecue sauce, which is kind of like just using yellow mustard with vinegar and honey or sugar. It kind of got some other ingredients in it: garlic powder, onion powder. I don't know the exact recipe, but that's pretty much what that is, and it cooks down. And I made a barbecue mustard sauce with the honey one not too long ago, and I put to make it look like it was a traditional barbecue sauce. I put a little bit of chipotle powder in it, so that mustard sauce actually looked like it was regular barbecue sauce. So that might be something for people that don't really care for tomato base, but it gives it still that illusion of a traditional one. And you can put like a little chipotle powder or smoked paprika, and you can give a mustard sauce some color to it. So just kind of think outside the box when it comes to even these traditional recipes that I'm presenting to you today. Something as simple as chicken wings. So usually they are a hit for most crowds. All right, pasta salad. Okay, so another crowd-winning recipe. Pasta salads are pretty standard, pretty economical, depending on what you put in here, right? But you can put a lot of different things into pasta salad. This is a traditional one with some black sliced olives in it. This one is depicting the spiral shaped pasta. You could do a penne pasta. You could do elbow macaroni pasta. So kind of like work with different shapes of pasta to make a pasta salad, right? And typically will be tomatoes in here. Sometimes chunks of like mozzarella cut into squares goes nicely into here, or maybe shredded Parmesan is nice. But get creative with that. If you want to keep it vegetarian, you could keep it like this with the little vinaigrette of just olive oil, lemon juice, and garlic and all that kind of stuff. Or you could just use like bottled salad dressing that's like vinaigrette style. I think vinaigrette style is the way to go, especially like that to kind of keep it. Most people like it kind of neutral. But there are creamy pasta salads that you can make, but vinaigrette is pretty standard for crowd pleasing. So, kind of be creative with the things that you're going to throw in it, right? So these are black olives. You could do green olives. You could do, if you're not a fan of regular olives, you might be more of a fan of capers. Capers is kind of like gives you that kind of flavor too. You can add into that. But just kind of experimenting with different add-ins for this would be good. You could do, I think salami is really nice in here. If you want to mess with some Italian cold cuts, just kind of sliced and squared off in here, that's pretty good. Pieces of ham, whatever you desire when it comes to making a pasta salad, making it unique and very flavorful. And this is kind of a great thing to have for crowds, and they can easily serve themselves. So this one has, like the broccoli in here. You could do red peppers cut up. You could do green peppers, whatever. Just kind of think outside the box, and you can make something very, very tasty just making pasta salads. Okay, so here's another one: barbecue pulled pork sandwiches. And then here we go again with getting creative with toppings, right? So barbecue pulled pork can easily be made in slow cookers. I'm a big slow cooker fan when it comes to making big batch stuff. Or what they got now is like your Instapot. Probably could cut down on some cooking time with that. But get creative with your toppings. So this is just on a standard hamburger bun, but if you want to, get a little fancy, you could do like a brioche bread, like a brioche bun that's shaped like a hamburger bun. And you could do your different toppings with this. So you could do, like I said, you could do your different barbecue sauces on that. That could include that mustard sauce that I was talking about, the Carolina one, if you want to make something different from the traditional tomato based barbecue sauce. You could also do like pickled toppings with that. So you could do like a pickled radish or a pickled red onion to kind of get a little bit more creative with the flavors of sandwiches. I think that's what kind of makes a sandwich is the foundation of the bread and toppings a lot of times. So if you start off with good ingredients, it can be something really satisfying for folks to enjoy. So pulled barbecue pork sandwiches, and you can do this with probably chicken too. Kind of thinking that same, if you're not a pork fan, you could definitely do pulled chicken. I'm sure it's just shredded meat, right? And you could do the same thing of just getting creative with getting some good flavor to make some sandwiches like that. So sandwiches are always a go-to with that. So say for instance, you are at someone's house, you're at a friend's house, and you want to have this as your contribution. You could have this all in the slow cooker, and then you could have your bread kind of laid out on a platter, and then kind of like it can be made where it's kind of like this coming out the slow cooker, and they're fixing their own sandwiches that way too. So that's a way of keeping things warm and having it fresh tasting. So, and then you can have like a platter, like I said, with all the different toppings to go on top of a pulled pork sandwich. Just regular pickles is good on there too, in addition to like the pickled onions and the other type of things you can put on here. So that's a good option. All right, so let's get into other things like making a bar, like a salsa bar. So guacamole and salsa, you never can go wrong. As you can see in these pictures here, the center is like a bowl. If you got a nice bowl where you can kind of present the guacamole and the salsa, make it look real pretty, and then kind of having a nice platter of tortilla chips. And then folks can kind of help themselves with that. I don't think you can go wrong with a guacamole and salsa bar, right? And you can have like the different guacamoles. We traditionally might get stuff from the store, but making it fresh is always going to taste better. But if you have a restaurant that has really good guacamole, you can cheat and do that too, and just have that where you're just getting the chips for it, and even like when it comes to salsa and things like that. One thing when it comes to like let's just say for instance you really don't want to do any type of prep, you're bringing something somewhere. So obviously there is guacamole and there's salsa that you can buy pre-made, right? But one way to make it taste fresher is, okay, say for instance like the salsa, you take a jar of salsa, sometimes it's a little tart, it might need just a little bit of sprucing up. So you can just kind of maybe dice up a few fresh plum tomatoes, kind of chopped up, and add that to your regular jarred salsa. And then you can add like, your fresh cilantro. If you're not a fan of cilantro, go do with parsley or whatever, some type of fresh herb to kind of make it look like it's homemade. And then that kind of cuts down on you doing the salsa from scratch. Like all of that. It's like you're injecting some freshness into it, but it's still cutting down on how much prep time because you have some jarred stuff already. And so with guacamole, I'm not really sure if you can really jazz that up, the kind that's already prepared. I always think the fresh tastes better to me, but the salsa one you can definitely get over by just kind of getting a good jarred salsa, and then just kind of adding fresh tomatoes and maybe a little chopped onion, jalapeno, or whatever to give it some freshness. And that will definitely be something that you can bring for a crowd, which I think most people will enjoy. All right, so let's just say it's breakfast time and we want to do something um, to help, for a crowd, right? Around the holidays, you maybe having a brunch or something. You can do a pancake or waffle bar, or you could do sheet pan pancakes. Okay. So, if you have a few, I actually think waffle bars are pretty good because people can kind of serve themselves. So you can have a few waffle machines, right? And you have the batter already. Maybe like you can have it like where it's in kind of like a pitcher just to keep things neat, and people can make their own waffles. Okay, which is pretty good. Pancake one that's going to take a little bit more work. So I would just say a waffle bar, right? So I would go with more with the sheet pan pancakes. There's plenty of recipes out on the internet where you can do all of that. So when you think about a sheet pan, that's going to have more volume to it, and it's going to make it just easier for people that enjoy to have some pancakes. And then you could have the bar, your waffle bar where you have toppings of strawberries, blueberries, some type of fresh fruit, your syrup that goes with it. Um, and that would be a great way of, having a breakfast or brunch. And then of course you have other items to go with it, but that's a nice option. I think having people make their own, waffles and also enjoying some sheet pan pancakes. And then there's things like, let's get into the desserts, right? So refrigerated cookies. I think we're all kind of mature enough to know what refrigerated cookies are, but let me just refresh your memory. So there is the kind that's by Toll House in Pillsbury, and you used to buy it back in the day. It came in like in a roll, right? And they can't think most of the flavors were like sugar and chocolate chip, right? Um, but there's plenty of recipes that you can make your own, and they're called refrigerator cookies. And they're called that because this is when you can just kind of slice and bake and make your cookies. Once you made the dough and they're in that cylinder and in the rolled condition, you can just slice and bake and you're good to go, right? So if you are going somewhere and you're saying, I'm going to bring dessert, I'm going to bring some cookies, you can easily make rolls of these refrigerated cookies. And maybe you might want to jazz it up. You do peanut butter, you do chocolate chip, you do sugar, whatever. And then you have these rolls of cookie dough. These actually freeze very well, right? And you could do this before an event. And then all you have to do is slice and bake. You got your sheet pans, you're just knocking it out. And then you have cookies for a crowd that would be very impressive. So you could stick with the standard of, your sugar cookies, your peanut butter, chocolate chip is always a winner right there. But you can make them any size that you want. These are different size ones. You depending on how you roll your original cookie dough. But this is a great one to do ahead of time. I think it's just less fuss when it's time to to do that. But of course, you can buy just your stuff in the store. But everybody's got flour, butter, eggs, and sugar. I would think, depending on what type of if you're a sweet person that likes to do sweets every now and then. But very easy recipe. You could cheat and go to the store and get the Toll House, but it's going to probably be a little bit better tasting and more economical making your own at the house and then having it for your special event to bring your contribution. So I think those are a great way of having dessert for a crowd of people. All right. Now let's talk about deviled eggs. Deviled eggs is a great option also. There's so many recipes on deviled eggs, right? And if you go to certain restaurants, they can get pricey because I've seen deviled eggs where they throw caviar on it, right? I'm not a caviar person, but you can get fancy with deviled eggs. Your standard one is like your mayonnaise base, right? And you've got like, your pickles in here, chopped pickles, a little bit of onion, and you can see this picture's got a little bit of cucumber in the inside of it. And it looks like it's really sprinkled heavily with maybe paprika, I'm saying, on the edges of this particular deviled eggs. But deviled eggs is a great option to bring to a crowd. This would take a little bit more labor to do that. But great crowd winning dish, I think, that you can kind of put your spin on to bring to a crowd. And it looks pretty too, depending on what type of deviled egg that you want to make. All right. And I'm gonna see if I don't butcher this up. Charcuterie board. I'm probably saying that wrong, but you could do a fruit one. So usually that type of board is meat based, right? Um, and I believe that is French. So it was more about the meat, but you could do it where it is just fruit based. Okay, with fruit and cheese, I should say, and then maybe some other crackers and things like that. That's always nice to as to bring to a crowd. Fruit and cheese, just delicious, and that's all going to depend. The combination you can keep it pretty standard with, like, this one's like strawberries and blueberries and grapes and all that kind of stuff. You could probably throw some nuts on this board also if you wanted to, and just get creative with the different cheeses that are out there. So this looks like a roll of brie here. That's a soft cheese. And then you have a solid cheese like a cheddar, or so many different cheeses that are out there. And then that is a great thing to bring to a crowd, and that doesn't really take a lot of work. And it's all about the quality of the cheese, and the fresh fruit and all that kind of good stuff. But just a board is kind of a cool thing to do and present, depending on what celebration that you're going to bring something. So something that's simple. I love these little board ideas, like bringing food and present it that way. And it's simple, but it's also just kind of a delicious way of presenting food and keeping it simple and basic. So experiment with different fruits, maybe different cheeses, and maybe you could even throw like like I said, you throw nuts in there. Just some different things that you could put in there. Definitely maybe some good bread. Good crusty bread, crackers. Just quality ingredients. I think that you can kind of focus on when you're doing something like this. All right. So meatballs, right? You can't go wrong with meatballs either. So if you want to cheat, you can buy frozen meatballs, or you could go the route of making your own, right? So these are baked meatballs. Like I said, I like stuff that can just be thrown in the oven. But then when you think about meatballs, you could do a lot of different flavor profiles with that too, right? So a lot of times around this time of the year, you might see people making even meatballs that's like in a cranberry sauce, right? So you're kind of having a glaze over it. That actually sounds pretty good to me. But you can do like your different ones. People do barbecue sauce over. They just do different glazes over it. And you can easily do some of this stuff too in a slow cooker too. So I think that's kind of something to think about if you're trying to make it where you're not putting too much effort into it. Okay. So sheet pan meatballs, I think, is a great way of doing that, and a great crowd pleaser. Absolutely. A good crowd pleasing dish that you could bring. Just make sure you got a good recipe for that. Right. But, and it's very filling. You see a lot of these things kind of like protein based, but they are delicious, like chicken wings and meatballs, all this kind of stuff. It's just, you're just getting creative with different things that you could bring to a celebration. All right, we didn't talk about soups, right? So soups can be even crowd winning, right? And soups can be, it could be cold soups depending on what part of the world you live in, or it could be the hot soups. But soups are, you can get very creative with soups too. So this looks like a creamy based soup here. You could just do like your regular soup, which is kind of like your broth base. But so many soup recipes out there. This is always crowd pleasing, right? And you can also make soup. It can be made in a big quantity. I think that's the basis of what I'm trying to say today with a lot of these recipes. Is that things can be made in big quantities, and they can also be delicious. So if you wanted to make a creamy based soup, you can puree it in a blender, leave some with a little bit of texture to it, kind of do half and half, whatever. But there's a lot of great soups, whether you want to do something like a chowder based soup, or even something like a good gumbo, which takes a little bit more work. But there's a lot of different ways of making soup, whether you want to make it vegetarian, or more meat added to it. So just think outside the box when it comes to even making soup. We can get really fancy with that. So that would be like different toppings with that too. So you could do like your toasted croutons on top of a soup. Different toppings with that too would be great. And what kind of bread that you would serve with that. So a lot of different options when even it comes to soups. All right. So a spice nut mix. You might want to keep it super simple, right? So you might be the person to bring a spiked nut mix to your friend's house or your little celebration, whatever you're doing, and you're keeping it very simple. So a spiced nut mix means just that. It could be where you're making it spicy. You could do it where you're doing sweet and salty. It could be something with cayenne pepper. It could be, most of the time the spiced nut mix is going to be toasted nuts, and then you're adding these other additions to it. So you could do something simple. If you didn't want to do a spiced nut mix with the dried fruit and stuff, you could just do it where it's strictly just like spiced almonds and a little bit of sugar or honey, and it has that little bit of glaze, and you have your own little spice mix that you like to coat the almonds in. So you could do that with any nuts, but this is just a mixture of like pecans and walnuts or what have you. But people like to just kind of snack on stuff like this at a celebration, and this one is probably the most least labor intensive recipe that I'm probably talking about today. But so this is something you could make, and these make great gifts too. If you wanted to do like a spice mix and put them in like little cellophane bags, right, with a little tie on it. But a spice nut mix is a great simple thing to give to a crowd, and they can kind of munch on that, and you can get very creative on what those combinations could be. All right, so I've never done dessert on here to get set up, but this will be my first time doing a demonstration on it. But I'm going to be making a cranberry almond biscotti today. And, biscotti is not hard to make. It's pretty simple. I'm going to be doing a traditional recipe, but it's kind of like the slide that I showed you, like a slice and bake type of cookie, but not as quick. But nevertheless, you can make these ahead of time because biscotti stays pretty good because they're very dry, not dry cookie, but they're more of a they keep crunchy and they don't get stale quick. So I am going to have you, Ahmad, switch over to my spotlight, my second cam, so I can get started with this cooking demonstration. Okay.
Vanessa, please give me a moment. I'm having a little trouble,
Oh,
but I'll
oh,
spotlight.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. No problem. Okay. I think we're good, Ahmad. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right. Okay. So we're going to make biscotti today. And this is I want to say it's very easy. I like to say that to people in case it might be your first time or you might be someone that's already made biscotti. But for those of you, I'm going to kind of give you a very basic way of making this. Okay. So I have to my bowl some flour, about 2 cups of flour. And I have some baking soda that's in here and a pinch of salt. Okay. I'm just going to mix this up just to kind of distribute this. And then also in this bowl is some sugar. Now, typically, like when you're making cookies, regular cookies, it's really you're creaming the butter and sugar together, right? But this is kind of reversed when it comes to that, when it comes to biscotti. And so we've got the flour and sugar in here, and also that baking soda and that pinch of salt. And I'm going to just put my whisk down. Now to this flour mixture, traditionally most biscotti is almond biscotti, right? So I'm just going to do a little something different because it's the holidays. I'm going to add some dried cranberries also to this. And then I'm just going to mix this up with the flour mixture. And then In a separate bowl, I'm going to put that to the side. In a separate bowl, I'm going to add 3 eggs to this. Try not to get any shell in here. I've been bad about that lately, but anywho. And so here to my eggs, I am going to add about a teaspoon of almond extract because these are almond biscotti, right, with cranberries. So I'm going to put that flavor in there. And then I'm going to just kind of whisk this until it's kind of really thoroughly mixed here. Now, traditional biscotti does not have butter or oil to it, okay? So, more modern recipes will have the butter and oil added to it, but we're going to keep this traditional here. But if you want a little bit more flavor to this, you could add a melted butter or oil. No, not oil, but it doesn't have flavor, but you could add some melted butter. I put in my other recipe that I have already fixed for you folks, that you can see the finished product. I added a little bit of clarified butter, which is ghee, and added it to the mixture here to the eggs. And that's when you would put that in here. So I did like 2 tablespoons of melted ghee to this eggs. And then that looks like it's pretty mixed up for me. And then to your bowl that has the dried cranberries and the sliced almonds and the sugar and the baking soda and the pinch of salt, I'm just going to add the eggs, this beaten egg to it. And let's give this a stir. And make sure that it's thoroughly combined before I proceed further. So this dough is going to appear kind of dry looking, but there's moisture in here. And I'll show you that as I go through this. So I'm just using my back of my spoon just to kind of mix this together. And I did use large eggs for this recipe. All right. So I'm going to take my other spoon here just to get that off the wooden spoon and use my smaller one to kind of distribute it off the rest of the dry mixture here. I kind of incorporate it. Okay. And now I'm going to just add just a little bit of flour to my board here. And I'm going to just dump this mixture onto it. And I'm just going to use my hands to kind of bring it together. And like I said, I can feel the actual moisture in this dough. Okay. A little bit more on the bottom. And I'm going to take my rolling pin. I like this type of rolling pin to do these cookies. So this is like a cylinder type of rolling pin. And then I am going to shape this into kind of a log, okay? And kind of like between 12 and 16 inches, kind of like, I don't know, I'm going to eyeball it. I'm going to eyeball it, but a little flour on top. And then kind of make it into, I'm going to start it this way and then kind of push it this way until I get about a 1 inch thickness, I should say. And it's kind of, I'm going to do it this way because I can't do it because my tripod is where you guys are looking at this presentation. So I'm going to kind of move it this way so I can roll the dough out correctly. Okay, so here we go. I got a little flour here. And then I'm going to lightly, this gives me good control with this particular rolling pin. And then you're just lightly rolling it out, trying to keep my shape there a little bit. And then just lightly pressing it until I'm getting that close to a half an inch thickness here. Now, some recipes will say you should chill the dough before you do this. You can go ahead and do that because that will make it a little easier to work with. It'll be a little bit more stiffer. Okay. So don't worry about it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but this is what you want to see, just kind of like a log. You want this to be kind of like between a 12 and 16-inch log that you're going to put onto your sheet pan that is buttered, or you're using a parchment paper to do that. Okay. So this is buttered already. And then you would put your log. I'm going to try to do this as fast as I can. There we go. And then you would put it on your sheet pan like so. Kind of like in the middle, okay? And then just kind of give it a light tapping, okay? So this would go into a 350-degree preheat oven, and you would let this cook for about 30 minutes, okay? And you would let that do what it needs to do, okay? I'm going to give my hands a quick rinse. They're a little sticky. Okay. I'm going to flip my board real quick. I got all the flour on here, and I can turn my board back this way. All right. Now, this is what your log would look like after your 30 minutes. Okay, so it would get, lightly browned, of course. And this is why they call biscotti twice baked, because this is the stage where you're going to bake it again. And you want to just slice these into even logs, right? So depending on how thick or thin you want these, that's totally up to you. Standard is like 1/2 inch to an inch, So you can just, using a serrated bread knife, that's what you want to use. You're going to slice into this log. So it's like you're cutting a loaf of bread almost, And so I did the cranberry and almond. If you want to do some other type of dried fruit, just feel free to experiment. But, your standard traditional recipe, you're good, I don't think you can go wrong with it. And so when these come out the oven, you want them to cool for at least 10 minutes or up to a half hour before you start to slice this, because it will fall apart on you if you try to rush the process. So up to a half hour would even be better, but you can do it after 10 minutes, on a cooling rack after you take the log off of it. All right. this is what your biscotti looks like after you've sliced it. And you can, if you make this, you'll feel the moisture still on the inside of that. So that's why they call them twice baked, because you're trying to get that extra moisture out of it to make it crunchy. And so you would place the biscotti. Actually, I'm going to put it over here. You place the biscotti right back onto your sheet pan. This one is a little, this is the end piece, right? I'm gonna save this a little bit. It's gonna be a little smaller. And then you're just gonna line them up like this onto your sheet pan. And so when you bake this, when you put these back in the oven at the 325, you're gonna bake each side at that 325. Okay? And so this is how you want to lay it down. I'm gonna actually shave this off a little bit, because you want that flat surface, right? So you would put these back into the oven at 325, and you would, just make sure you're kind of looking at it, depending on how thickness. I would say this is about an inch, close to an inch. But if you do them thinner, you probably do a little less time, toasting them on each side. But you want to do at least a half an inch to up to an inch, okay? And so each side 10 minutes at 325, and then you're going to put them on a cooling rack to cool, okay? And then that's pretty much it when it comes to making biscotti. But you can see how simple that is to make those. And so this is what they look like finished. And I've made some of these earlier. And these are just your standard biscotti. They're great with coffee, dipped in coffee, as the traditional biscotti cookie recipe is. And these can be dipped like in chocolate, white chocolate. Give it the tip that give it a nice, presentation for that. But you can just kind of keep it traditional. And these will hold for, believe it or not, a week or two without becoming stale, because a lot of that moisture is drawn out of this particular cookie. And so when these bake, you really smell the aroma of the almonds cooking. Some recipes will say to toast almonds. I don't really see it as necessary, because it does bake in the oven on the first bake at 30 minutes, and then you're baking it another 10 minutes on each side. So I really don't see see the need to do that, because they are getting baked, pretty good in the oven. But biscotti is a great crowd pleasing recipe, I think, depending on who people like. They like sweets, I don't think you can go wrong. I remember teaching a class to a bunch of high school students who were very thrilled to learn how to make biscotti, and they were making comparisons to how much it costs at Starbucks to buy one biscotti. So those biscotti are more like softer, and it's more fat added to it. That's more of the modern type of biscotti. But the traditional ones did not have butter and oil to it, and they were crunchy and hard like these somewhat, because you wanted to dunk them in coffee or what have you. So this is your recipe. You will be getting this in the class notes. But very simple recipe that you can make. You can get very creative with biscotti. And I think they make great gifts also. So, try something different out the box. Like I said, the slice and bake cookies. This is kind of a slice and bake, but this is a little bit more preparation. But very easy to make, and you can get kind of different mix-ins with that. And I think that would be a really great thing to have. So I'm going to come off of this second camera. I'm going to come back to see if there's any questions in the chat, and I'll take it from there. Okay. All right. All right. Anyone have any questions? It doesn't look like anyone had any questions. Okay. All right. I'm going to get my presentation back up here. Okay. All right. Yeah, so we went over quite a few things, everyone, regarding crowd winning recipes. And, I hope you'll try some of these ideas. We've talked about a lot of savory things, some things that you already have, made, I'm sure, but just to kind of give you some different ideas of how you can make it, make things a little different from the ordinary. I think that's kind of being something important to think about, just kind of being creative on what you're bringing. And even if it's something as simple as those chicken wings or meatballs or, a taco bowl, or even something like making that, the charcuterie board, that is going to be something different. And you can do that. I said do that with fruit. You can do your own meat board with that. Just getting really, really good quality ingredients with that. And then just, enjoying the time with folks when you're bringing these delicious foods to have with folks. I think that's the main thing to think about. But the Scotty recipe, definitely give it a shot if you've never made them before. They're super easy to make, and I think they're a great thing to have. So, all right. So let me just kind of see if I didn't miss any points here. Oh yeah. Okay. Soups, meatballs, everything here. Oh yeah. Deviled eggs, refrigerated cookies. Yeah. So I went over savory, sweets, even desserts. I think that's great to have to bring to your celebrations, and just kind of get creative when it comes to all of this. Don't make any stress on yourself when it comes to the holidays. I think we can kind of keep it very, very basic. We don't have to go crazy with things. Just make things look pretty, make it taste delicious, obviously.